all of these together, again, are just making me feel like I don't have time. I quote unquote do not have time. But the truth is, we prioritize what's important to us. And if you do want to make nutrition a priority, no, it doesn't have to look like perfection. No, it doesn't have to look like you're going from 0 to 100. Welcome to the Mind and My Wellness podcast, your podcast for all things macros, movement, mindset, and everything in between. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind and My Wellness podcast. This is your host, Danny. And today I'm doing just a quick little bite-sized episode that I'm not going to lie, it's a little outside of my comfort zone. Some of this information very vulnerably, but I decided that I think it's really important to share this because I know I am not alone in feeling these ways and experiencing these sort of life transitions or busyness and how it affects our overall food choices. And as someone myself who knows the ins and outs of nutrition, who prioritizes their nutrition, who coaches others on how to prioritize their nutrition in a very sustainable way, I do still struggle with that too. And that's what I'm going to dive into in this episode because I have been experiencing a patch of life that came fast and quick and very stressful. And I saw some pretty quick changes in how I was prioritizing my nutrition and what I was prioritizing. And I know firsthand by working with now over 1,000 women throughout their nutrition journeys that this is a very common situation. And it's one that a lot of people will get stuck in and not know how to get out of. And so in today's episode, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into my life lately, which I do here and there, but this more so than ever before, just because I haven't talked about this even on my social media yet. So you can relate because, again, I know I'm not alone in going through periods of life that are busier, that are more stressful, and seeing how that's impacted in the overall food choices that I'm making, how it ultimately makes me feel, and the changes that I'm seeing because of it. And then what am I doing to kind of course correct, to kind of prioritize what I can prioritize, even through this busy season of life? So first and foremost, a little life update, or updates, I should say. As I'm recording this, am entering my third trimester. And I shared this very briefly on my social media, but there have been a couple times where I have really struggled with some pregnancy anxiety over the past about 2 months. And it's very sporadic. I mean, I've probably had it 3 times, but it's been pretty foreign to me because I'm very open about my experience struggling with anxiety and what I've done to really help to manage that anxiety. And to be honest, I haven't felt that sort of anxiety in a very long time. And I'm very proud of all the work that I've done and, going to therapy and all of that to really help aid in the techniques that I have. But it's been a totally different beast over the past couple months that I know hormones are involved. I know that this is a big life change, having a baby, but a lot of that anxiety has really started to stem up again. And I started to notice that between that anxiety, between some other big life changes, my nutritional choices, I really started disregarding them and I really started deprioritizing my nutrition, which is really not the time to be deprioritizing my nutrition, especially because I have more to think about than myself. And last week's episode, if you're pregnant, if you're postpartum, if you know somebody who is, I highly recommend going to listen to that episode because I dive into the importance of nutrient needs and micronutrient needs and macro needs during this critical time in life. And as much as I knew that, I was still deprioritizing it for this, month of my life. And it was causing me to kind of spin and spiral a little bit. And if I'm being honest, I felt like a fraud because here I am talking the talk, but I'm not walking the walk. And that's when I realized, after being very hard on myself, that there are seasons of life when we're not going to be walking the walk, but we can acknowledge it. We can identify what are those things that I can do to help me prioritize what I have control over right now. And so that has really been this journey that I was on, 2 months ago, a month ago. So throughout this period of time, there was this anxiety that was coming up just with all of the things that are happening between having a baby, our lives completely changing. And as excited as I am to have this little girl, to be a mom, there are a lot of fears around that as well, especially being a business owner and working with so many clients and still wanting to make space for family and friends and things that I enjoy doing. I know that my routine is going to be completely overhauled. And I'm sure I won't even have a routine for a while. And I'm a very routine person. I love having my mornings and going to the gym. And I know that's going to change. And I think knowing all of that, although it's so exciting, it's also very scary. And it's okay to admit that. But along with that, we were also going through this big change in terms of we're hoping to move and we're currently in a 2-bedroom condo and we really wanted some more space. The second room in our condo is my office slash our Peloton is in here too. So it was really hard feeling like, okay, if we stay here, that, maybe that's the nursery. And I lose that space, that workspace that I have that I've made so sacred to myself and that I've built this business in, that I've helped so many countless clients in. But on the flip, we really want to move. We really want to find this next place. And we were struggling with that. We were struggling with finding a place. And we knew in order to buy our next place, we'd have to sell this place. And not to get too in the weeds, but we went through countless homes of offers in and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then things changing and then, disappointment. And it felt like this roller coaster of emotion paired with my anxiety that I've already had through this pregnancy and feeling like I'm in limbo, feeling like I do not know where I'm going to be when this baby is born. And all of this may sound like first world problems, which I totally acknowledge and I totally understand. But that doesn't discredit the fact that it caused a lot of stress on myself, overthinking, a lot of sleepless nights, which ultimately impacted what I was grabbing throughout the day. So more often than not, I would order food. I would not be prioritizing specific nutrients that I know my body needed. I would be reaching for things that 20 minutes later had me hungry again. All of these foundational principles with our food that I very well knew, I was still just deprioritizing them out of this feeling of stress, out of this feeling of emotional eating, which I know is a big theme for a lot of women as well. And so it's hard for me to share this, especially being in the position that I am in, helping other women not do this. So why the heck am I doing this? But it really helped me to realize that it's not always as easy as it sounds. It's not always like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm, noticing that I'm not eating well today. It's going to change and we're going to change it from here on out. It hasn't been that easy for me during this period. And it really brought me back to my own experience pre-macros where I felt like this was a constant thing day in and day out. And I'd go through phases of being super strict where I would eat low calorie, where I would cut out all bad foods, quote unquote, reduce sugar, only eat whole foods, focusing on the Whole30. And then I'd fall into these phases, much like what I was in a month ago, where then I'd say, forget all this. I'm just going to binge on this. I'm going to eat on this. And it did not have me feeling good. And I also noticed that the food choices that I was making during that time, it led to me not feeling good at all. And so if you feel like you are in this boat, if you feel like you enter and exit this boat, again, know that you're not alone. I'm going to share with you what's worked for me And what I share with my clients who also struggle with this, but I feel even more connected to it now that it has been such a recent experience. Before, I mean, I can speak to my past experience from years ago, but now being in this life phase of actually experiencing it again and feeling like I have no control over so many things in my life. I'm also letting my nutrition kind of fall to the wayside. If I only have so much capacity to really prioritize my nutrition or prioritize getting in my movement or whatever that is, what should I even be prioritizing? And I think that is the biggest hurdle for a lot of us is we just feel spread so thin, especially in this society that we live in today. That's just like go, 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 do, do, do. We feel very spread thin that we don't even know where should we be focusing. What are the easy low hanging fruit items that we can just say, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And if nothing else, at least I know I'm doing this and that's going to make an impact. So for me, these are the things that those low hanging fruit items, those top priority items that allow me space for other things, for space for moving. So we just did buy a house and now we're in the process of moving and selling this place. So there are a lot of priorities that are taking precedent right now that are causing me to feel very spread thin. And, preparing for a lot of very exciting things in my business that are coming up. All of these together, again, are just making me feel like I don't have time. I quote unquote do not have time. But the truth is that we prioritize what's important to us. And so if you do want to make nutrition a priority, no, it doesn't have to look like perfection. No, it doesn't have to look like you're going from 0 to 100. So again, these are the things that I am focusing on, that I've been focusing on the last few weeks after about a month of me really deprioritizing my nutrition, feeling like I hate using this term, but I think a lot of us can relate to this, like feeling like I fell off the wagon. I fell off the wagon and I do not know how to get back on this wagon. I feel completely lost. I feel burnt out. I feel spread so thin that I don't even want to get back on this wagon. But I know that this wagon makes me feel so much better. I know that this wagon is helping me to create this very healthy, long life that I desire to have. So to get back on this wagon, these are the things that I'm really prioritizing. And it has nothing to do with actually tracking my macros in particular. Number one is I was not prioritizing my protein whatsoever. Yes, I have some some protein aversion still throughout pregnancy, but I was not actively prioritizing my protein, and that was the number one thing, the number one change I made. And doing that in and of itself has curbed all cravings that I've had. It has helped me really regulate not only the amount of calories I'm eating through curbing those cravings, but it really, in and of itself, helps to regulate blood sugar levels, which helps with that steady energy throughout the day. And so, as soon as I did that one thing, which is what I preach all the time, I was just not walking the walk, you guys. As soon as I changed that one thing, within 2 days, I started noticing a difference. And of course, here and there, and I've been sharing this on social, I will track here and there on specific days as of the past month, just to make sure that A, I'm eating enough calories, and B, that I am getting in enough protein. I actually should swap those because A is to make sure I'm getting enough protein. And then I'm just seeing, where are my calories falling? Some days I was feeling like maybe I wasn't eating enough. Other days I was feeling like I was snacking so much and it was all adding up that I was over consuming. And so sometimes tapping in and using macros as a tool can be really helpful as long as it doesn't feel overwhelming. For me, I've done this for so long that I know how to easily do it. I wasn't weighing and tracking everything. I was just kind of loosely guesstimating inside my food tracking app to help me set these guidelines and understand my nutrient intake. But once I increased that protein, once I started to really tap into my hunger cues again, because I was able to regulate my blood sugar through that protein intake and really prioritizing it, I was able to then tap into those hunger cues and not feel so out of control with my food choices, with feelings of wanting to binge. And so, if nothing else, the one piece of advice I would give you is to prioritize your protein throughout your day. First, make sure that you're getting protein at breakfast. And this doesn't have to be overwhelming. It could be you're having Greek yogurt, maybe you have a side of turkey bacon, maybe you're making eggs and you add in some chicken sausage, or you have turkey bacon or regular bacon. I say turkey bacon because that's what I use. Maybe it's a protein smoothie because you are just so busy, or maybe it's protein overnight oats or chia pudding that you can make in batch ahead of time, store it in your fridge, and just go. Those types of things have been so helpful for me during this time when I'm feeling very spread thin. I don't feel like I have a lot of time to dedicate to making myself meals, but I know I want to prioritize my protein intake. So, how can you make it easy on yourself? How can you simplify it? Take 5 minutes out of your day to make a couple jars of overnight oats or chia pudding with protein powder. Or maybe it's you have your frozen fruits and veggies or spinach or whatever and protein powder and milk to make your protein smoothie in the morning. It takes 5 minutes. Keeping it simple, but focusing on the biggest needle movers that are going to help you feel good and feel your best, that in and of itself can then be a ripple effect for the rest of your nutritional choices. So again, because I'm choosing to prioritize protein as my one thing right now, if I have no control over anything else, I have control over, let me make sure that my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, any snacks, I am prioritizing protein in those meals and snacks. That one decision that I'm making, again, that's only one decision that I have to make, has a ripple effect across everything else. It's helping to regulate blood sugar, so I'm not reaching for snacks. So I'm not wanting very refined carb heavy foods, which ultimately will lead to that variance in blood sugar, which will lead you to wanting to snack more. You have more cravings, your energy spikes and dips. So we really want to focus on that steady energy, curbing those cravings, allowing you to tap into your hunger cues to have a better sense of, okay, I'm actually hungry, or no, this is emotional eating. This is me just feeling like I'm stressed. I want to grab that bag of crackers. So if I can leave you with one tip, if you are resonating with this, if you're listening to this like, oh my gosh, Danny, this is me right now. Girl, I feel you. Second, focus on protein. How can you incorporate protein into your day in a very seamless way that doesn't feel overwhelming? That is the one thing that I'm going to challenge you with. That is the one priority that I'm going to give you with. And I have no doubt that you are going to see a ripple effect across your choices from there on out. And don't beat yourself up. Don't be hard on yourself if there's a day where you're like, oh, I didn't prioritize my nutrition again. Know that it's not an all or nothing thing. Know that it's not if I did it today, I don't do it tomorrow, I failed. It's not that at all. It's the small changes and the small choices that we're making day in and day out, week over week, month over month, year over year, that are going to compound and make the difference. So ultimately, I'm sharing this episode because it was a struggle that I was struggling with for about a month, where I felt like I was reverting back to old ways. And I won't even say immediately, I would say it was towards the end of that month, I caught myself being very hard on myself and feeling like, oh my gosh, who am I to be sharing the information that I share, yet I am not walking the walk, to then remember so many people are in this same boat right here, right now. And our lives are all going to look different, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of us struggle making nutritional choices that are going to make us feel good, that are going to help us achieve the goals that we have. And it can be very hard to start. It can be very clouded by so much information out on wherever you're gathering your information, whether that's social media, whether that's blogs, whether that's reading books. There can be so much information out there that you feel paralyzed and not even know where to start. So I hope that this episode gives you a little glimpse into what I struggled with in the past month or two and how I have gone about kind of course correcting it, managing what I can manage, doing what I can do, choosing one thing that I know that I can choose day in and day out that is going to create this ripple effect across the board for me to help me make better choices, even if it's just choosing one thing. All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you resonated with this episode, send me a DM on Instagram at Minding My Macros. I would love to chat with you about it because, again, this is something that I struggled with a lot pre-macros, but since really prioritizing macros in my life and understanding the foundations, I haven't had this struggle in a while. And then as life just kind of took over and I felt like I was in autopilot with it, I was falling back into some of these old ways. So know that it is okay. I hope that you're listening to this like, okay, I'm not alone if this is something that you're struggling with. So send me a message on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you. But also, if you're loving this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you left a kind rating and review down below. I read all of them, and it really helps not only me understand what episodes I should be creating or, what you're liking, but also it really helps this podcast reach more listeners. So it would mean the world to me if you just took a couple seconds to head on down and rate and review this podcast. But until next week, my friends, keep minding your wellness. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along and catch all future episodes to help you look and feel like the best version of you. I'll see you in the next episode.